The repair drone buzzed angrily as Nathan Drake attempted to calibrate its navigation system. The aging space station Helios creaked around him, its metal bones protesting against the void of space. After 15 years of maintaining this backwater outpost, Nathan had learned to interpret every groan and whisper of the station's ancient infrastructure. "Come on, you stubborn little," he muttered, adjusting the drone's neural network with practiced fingers. The station's repair fleet was essential for keeping Helios functional, especially now that corporate funding had dried up. These days, the station survived on whatever maintenance Nathan could provide with salvaged parts and ingenuity. A sudden alarm pierced the workshop's calm. Nathan's head snapped up as red emergency lights began pulsing throughout the corridor. The station's AI spoke in its characteristic monotone, "Warning. Unknown vessel approaching. Collision course detected." Nathan abandoned the drone and rushed to the nearest viewport. Through the reinforced plexiglass, he spotted a small ship tumbling end over end, its hull scarred by weapons fire. It was unlike anything he'd seen before, sleek, organic curves rather than the utilitarian designs favored by human engineers. Computer analysis. Vessel appears to be of Carillion design. Severe damage to propulsion and life support systems. One life sign detected, failing. Nathan's heart raced. The Carillions were notorious for their isolationist empire and technological superiority. They hadn't been seen in this sector for decades. Calculate impact point and prep medical bay 2. Emergency protocols. He sprinted through the corridors, magnetic boots clanking against metal grating. The ship was going to hit, nothing he could do about that, but maybe he could save whoever was inside. The impact came just as he reached the emergency airlock, the entire station shuddering from the collision. Donning his EVA suit, Nathan cycled through the airlock and made his way across the station's outer hull. The Carillion vessel had carved a deep groove into Helios's armor plating before coming to rest in a tangle of support struts and power conduits. As he approached, a section of the ship's hull rippled and dissolved, revealing a figure slumped in the cockpit. Nathan's breath caught. The pilot was clearly Carillion, silvery skin that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light, delicate features that were almost too perfect to be natural. But what struck him most was the evidence of violence, deep bruises marring that ethereal skin, torn clothing, and most disturbing of all, cruel mechanical restraints wrapped around her wrists and throat. Working quickly, he cut through the restraints with his plasma torch and carefully extracted her from the wreckage. Her body was unnaturally cold, even through his suit's insulation. The medical scanner built into his helmet displayed a cascade of warnings: internal injuries, severe trauma, dangerous levels of some unknown compound in her bloodstream. Back in Medical Bay 2, Nathan worked frantically to stabilize his mysterious patient. The station's medical AI helped identify compatible treatments, but Carillion physiology was largely unknown to human medicine. He had to rely on educated guesses and careful monitoring of her vital signs. Hours passed. Nathan cleaned and dressed her wounds, administered broad-spectrum antibiotics, and set up nutrient feeds. Gradually, her condition began to improve. The silver sheen returned to her skin, and her breathing grew stronger. It was nearly ship's midnight when her eyes opened, stunning pools of liquid gold that fixed on him with startling intensity. She tried to speak, but only managed a weak cough. "Easy," Nathan said softly, helping her take small sips of water. "You're safe here. I'm Nathan Drake, chief engineer of Station Helios." "Well, only engineer these days." She swallowed carefully before trying again. "Thura," she whispered, her voice carrying an ethereal quality that sent shivers down his spine. "My name is Thura. You're Carillion nobility, aren't you?" Nathan asked, noting the intricate patterns that seemed to shift just beneath her skin, a trait he'd heard was reserved for the ruling class. Fear flashed across her features. "Please," she gasped, trying to sit up. "They'll be looking for me. I can't, I have to go." Nathan gently but firmly kept her from rising. You're not going anywhere in this condition. Besides, no one comes out here anymore. This station's been forgotten by just about everyone. He managed a reassuring smile. Whatever you're running from, you've got time to heal. Thera relaxed slightly, though tension still lined her face. You don't understand, she said. My father, the king, he'll tear apart the galaxy to find me. Nathan's blood ran cold. The Carillion king was legendary for his cruelty and xenophobic policies. If Thera was his daughter. Why, he asked. Why would he hurt his own child like this? Tears like liquid starlight gathered in her golden eyes. Because I dared to speak against him. Because I believed we should end our isolation, work with other species, help those in need. Because I refused to be the weapon he wanted me to be. She turned her face away. In his eyes, I'm a traitor. And he ensures traitors suffer. Nathan looked at the medical readouts, understanding dawning. The compound in her blood, it wasn't from injuries. It was a carefully designed toxin, meant to cause pain without death. A father's punishment for his daughter's compassion. Something fierce and protective awoke in Nathan's chest. He'd spent years alone on this station, fixing broken things, keeping the lights on long after everyone else had abandoned it. But this was different. This wasn't about repairs or maintenance. This was about standing against cruelty, about protecting someone who'd risked everything to do what was right. Well, he said, checking her vitals one more time, looks like Helios just got its second resident. And if anyone comes looking. He glanced at the station's defense systems, dormant but still functional. They'll find this old station's got some fight left in it yet. Thera's hand found his, her touch sending an electric tingle through his skin. Thank you, she whispered. I never expected to find kindness so far from home. Nathan squeezed her hand gently. Get some rest, princess. Tomorrow, we'll start figuring out how to keep you safe. As he dimmed the medical bay's lights, he couldn't help but wonder what he'd gotten himself into. But watching Thera drift into peaceful sleep, free from pain for the first time in who knew how long, he knew he wouldn't have it any other way. The following days aboard Helios settled into an unexpected rhythm. Nathan spent mornings maintaining critical station systems while Thera recovered her strength. Afternoons found them together in the medical bay, her golden eyes following his movements as he worked on portable equipment, their conversations growing longer and deeper with each passing day. The gardens were my sanctuary, Thera said one afternoon, describing her life in the royal palace of Carillia. Father forbade anything non-Carillion in the palace, but I secretly cultivated earth roses there. Their beauty, their resilience, they gave me hope that different species could not only coexist but create something magnificent together. Nathan looked up from the diagnostic panel he was repairing. What happened when he found out? A shadow crossed her luminescent features. He had them all burned. Made me watch as the gardeners were executed for corrupting my mind with alien influences. Her fingers traced patterns in the air, a Carillion gesture of mourning. That's when I knew I had to act. Working with sympathetic members of the court, Thera had begun secretly documenting her father's atrocities, the disappeared political rivals, the suppressed technological innovations that could have helped other species, the brutal purification campaigns against worlds that showed too much foreign influence. I thought if I gathered enough evidence, presented it to the High Council. She laughed bitterly. I was naive. Father had already replaced most of them with loyalists. The few who might have helped were too terrified to act. Nathan set aside his tools and moved closer, drawn by the pain in her voice. You tried to do the right thing. That counts for something. Does it? Look what it cost. Thera's hand drifted to her neck, where faint scars from the restraints remained. Father didn't just want to punish me. He wanted to make an example of me. The public torture of a princess would show everyone that no one was above his law. She described the weeks of calculated agony, the toxins designed to magnify pain receptors, the neural inhibitors that prevented her from losing consciousness. But the worst part, she whispered, was seeing the satisfaction in his eyes. His own daughter's suffering pleased him. Nathan's hands clenched into fists. How did you escape? My mother's old handmaiden, Lyra. She stayed loyal to me even after. Thurah's voice caught. She smuggled in the access codes for a small ship, helped me get to the landing bay. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Father will have killed her by now. Without thinking, Nathan reached out and took her hand. The contact sent that familiar electric tingle through him, but this time it felt different, not alien, just right. I'm so sorry, he said softly. Thurah's fingers intertwined with his. Sometimes I wonder if I should have stayed silent, played the obedient daughter he wanted. So many died because I dared to speak up. Hey. Nathan squeezed her hand gently. Those deaths are on him, not you. You saw something wrong and tried to fix it. That's not weakness, that's courage. She looked at him then, really looked at him, as though seeing past his human features to something deeper. How do you do that? She asked. Do what? Make me feel safe. Understood. Even after everything. She gestured at herself, at her distinctly non-human appearance. We're from completely different worlds, different species, and yet. Nathan smiled. Maybe that's exactly why it works. No expectations, no prejudices. Just, us. The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken possibilities. Then the station's proximity alarm shattered the silence. Warning, the AI announced. Multiple vessels detected entering sensor range. Carillion signatures confirmed. Thurah's face went pale, her skin losing its ethereal glow. No, she breathed. They've found me. Nathan was already moving, pulling up sensor data on the nearest terminal. 3 Carillion warships, heavily armed, on an attack vector. They're still at extreme range. We have maybe 20 minutes before they're close enough to get a clean scan of the station. You have to let me go, Thurah said, struggling to rise from her bed. If they find me here, they'll kill you too. Not happening. Nathan's mind raced through options. The station's defenses were old but well maintained. The outer hull was riddled with maintenance passages and sensor blind spots. And most importantly, they don't know this station like I do. He turned to Thurah, determination hardening his features. I've spent 15 years keeping this place running with duct tape and stubborn optimism. If your father's thugs think they can just walk in here and take you. A dangerous smile crossed his face. Well, let's show them why you don't underestimate human ingenuity. Thurah stared at him, wonder and fear warring in her golden eyes. Why? She asked. Why risk everything for me? Nathan helped her stand, supporting her still weakened body. Because you were right about different species creating something magnificent together. His free hand cupped her cheek, thumb brushing away a tear. And I'm not letting anyone tear that apart. Above them, the station's ancient defense systems began to power up, ready to protect what might be the most important thing they'd ever guarded, not a princess and a mechanic, but the promise of what they could become together. Nathan's fingers flew across the control panels as he reconfigured Helios's defense grid. The approaching Carillion warships loomed larger on the sensors, their weapons already charging. Beside him, Thurah worked just as frantically, her intimate knowledge of Carillion military protocols proving invaluable. Their shields are calibrated for high-energy weapons, she explained, her golden eyes reflecting the console's glow. But this station's older particle cannons operate on frequencies they won't expect. We might have a chance. Might is better than nothing. Nathan activated the station's electromagnetic camouflage, a system he'd cobbled together from salvaged stealth tech. How long before they realize you're here? They'll scan for my biosignature. Father had it encoded into their systems after my escape. Thurah's hands trembled slightly. But these medical bays, the radiation shielding might mask it. The first shots from the Carillion ships lit up space around them, testing patterns designed to provoke a response. Nathan held steady, waiting. Years of solitary maintenance had taught him patience. Let them think the station was abandoned, just another piece of space debris. A proximity alert blared. Warning. Boarding craft detected. They're not taking any chances, Thurah whispered. Those are Royal Guard vessels. Elite troops, cybernetically enhanced. They won't stop until, she suddenly doubled over, gasping in pain. Nathan caught her before she fell. What's wrong? The toxin. Father must have activated it remotely. Her skin had lost its glow, turning ashen. A fail-safe. He always has a fail-safe. Rage burned through Nathan's veins. Even here, light years from his throne, the king was still torturing his daughter. Medical bay. Now. He half-carried Thurah through the corridors, his mind racing. The station's defenses would buy them time, but not enough. They needed a plan. They needed. The corridor ahead exploded. Nathan threw them both behind a bulkhead as armored figures stepped through the breach. Royal Guards, their cybernetic implants glowing with malevolent purpose. Their leader raised a hand, and Nathan felt an invisible force try to pull them from cover. Telekinetic augments, Thurah gasped through her pain. Standard equipment for guard captains. Good to know. Nathan pulled a remote from his pocket and pressed a button. Throughout the station, repair drones activated, swarming the guards with welding torches and cutting beams. The distraction gave him enough time to drag Thurah into a maintenance shaft. They crawled through the station's arteries, the sounds of combat echoing through the metal walls. Nathan's modifications to the repair drones were keeping the guards busy, but it wouldn't last. They needed to reach Medical Bay 4, the most heavily shielded room on the station. Nathan, Thurah whispered as they paused to catch their breath. You have to let me go. The toxin, it's going to kill me anyway. Save yourself. He turned to her in the dim emergency lighting. Even racked with pain, she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. Not a chance, princess. Why are you so stubborn? Despite everything, there was a hint of fondness in her voice. Must be a human thing. He managed a grin. Besides, I've got an idea. Your father thinks he can control you with that toxin. Let's show him what happens when human and Carillion technology work together. They reached Medical Bay 4, sealing the reinforced doors behind them. Nathan immediately began connecting medical sensors to his jury-rigged computer system. Your father's remote signal, it has to be targeting something in your bloodstream. If we can isolate the frequency. Thurah's eyes widened. You want to hack the toxin? Better. Nathan's fingers danced across the keyboard. I want to reverse it. Turn his weapon into your cure. He looked up at her. But I need your help. Your understanding of Carillion biotech combined with my engineering skills, together we might just pull this off. For a moment, the pain in her eyes was replaced by something else, hope, mixed with another emotion Nathan dared not name. Then she nodded. What do you need? They worked together as the guards tried to breach the medical bay's doors, combining their knowledge in ways neither species had attempted before. Nathan's unorthodox human approaches meshed with Thurah's deep understanding of Carillion science, creating something entirely new. When the guards finally broke through, they found their princess standing tall, her skin glowing brighter than ever. The toxin that was meant to control her had been transformed, becoming part of her instead of something that could be used against her. Hello, Captain, Thurah said calmly to the guard leader. Please inform my father that his failsafe has failed. And tell him. She reached for Nathan's hand, intertwining their fingers. Tell him I've found something stronger than his fear. The captain raised his weapon, cybernetic targeting systems locking on. The king's orders are absolute. You will return to face justice. No, Thera replied, her voice carrying an authority that made even the augmented guards hesitate. I will remain free. And I will show our people that there is another way. She squeezed Nathan's hand. A better way. Nathan squeezed back, a silent promise passing between them. Whatever came next, they would face it together, human and Carillion, mechanic and princess, two beings from different worlds who had found something extraordinary in each other. And in that moment, as the guards prepared to attack and the station's alarms blared around them, both knew that some things were worth any risk, any sacrifice. Some things, like the love blooming between stars, could transcend even the barriers between species. The station rocked with explosions as Nathan activated his final defensive protocols. Repair drones, now weaponized, engaged the royal guards while emergency bulkheads sealed off sections of the station. But the guards were advancing methodically, their cybernetic enhancements allowing them to bypass his security measures one by one. The king demands your return, princess, the guard captain's voice echoed through the station's comm system. Surrender now, and the human may be spared. Thera's golden eyes met Nathan's. They both knew it was a lie. Your father really doesn't understand humans, does he? Nathan muttered as they moved through the maintenance tunnels. We tend to get stubborn when threatened. A bitter smile crossed Thera's face. He understands nothing beyond power and control. She paused, placing her hand against a wall panel. Nathan, I can feel the station's power grid through the metal. The way you've modified it, it's unlike anything I've seen. 15 years of improvements. Nathan checked his tablet, tracking the guard's movements. Had to keep this place running somehow. No, it's more than that. Thera's skin began to glow brighter, resonating with the station's energy. You've created something unique here. A hybrid of human ingenuity and salvaged alien tech. Like what we did with the toxin. Understanding dawned in Nathan's eyes. You think we can interface your abilities with the station's systems? Before she could answer, a plasma bolt scorched the wall beside them. 3 guards had breached the maintenance shaft, their augmented bodies barely fitting in the confined space. Nathan pulled Thera into a side passage as more shots filled the air with ionized particles. They emerged in the station's core, a vast chamber housing Helios's main reactor. Energy conduits pulsed with power, creating a web of light that reminded Nathan of the patterns beneath Thera's skin. This is where it ends, the guard captain's voice boomed as he and his troops surrounded them. Your rebellion dies here, princess. Thera stood tall, her silver skin almost blinding now. You're wrong, captain. This is where everything begins. She reached for Nathan's hand. Ready? He grinned, pulling up the station's master controls on his tablet. Together. Together. What happened next defied explanation. As Nathan initiated the power surge, Thera's Carillion abilities merged with the station's hybrid systems. Energy flowed between them, human and alien technology singing in harmony. The guard's cybernetic implants, designed to dominate and control, couldn't handle the unprecedented fusion of technologies. One by one, their augmentations failed, leaving them helpless in the face of something their king had never imagined possible, true cooperation between species. But victory came with a price. The power surge was destroying the station's systems, starting a chain reaction that would soon be irreversible. Nathan saw the readouts and knew they had minutes at most. We have to get to the emergency shuttle, he shouted over the rising whine of overloading systems. This whole place is going to. A new voice cut through the chaos, broadcasting on all frequencies. My disappointing daughter. Did you think I would allow this farce to continue? The main viewport flickered to life, revealing the face of the Carillion king. His silver skin was darker than Thera's, marked with the complex patterns of royal authority. But his eyes, Nathan had never seen such cold malevolence. I had hoped to bring you home for proper rehabilitation, the king continued. But you've forced my hand. If you wish to consort with lesser beings, then you can die with them. The sensors screamed as the Carillion warships opened fire with their main batteries. The station's shields, already strained from the power surge, began to buckle. Nathan grabbed Thara's arm. We need to move. Now. But she stood frozen, staring at her father's image. All these years, she whispered. I tried to understand you. Tried to be what you wanted. But now I see, you're not a king. You're not even a father. You're just afraid. Afraid of change, of difference, of anything you can't control. The king's expression darkened. I have ruled our people for centuries. I have kept us pure, strong. You've kept us stagnant. Thara's voice rang with authority that matched her father's. Look at what Nathan and I accomplished here. Different species, different technologies, working in harmony. This is the future, father. And it's coming whether you fear it or not. Another bombardment rocked the station. Warning lights flashed everywhere as systems began to fail. Nathan's tablet showed multiple hull breaches forming. The shuttle bay, he urged. We have to. The deck exploded beneath them. Nathan found himself falling, tumbling through suddenly depressurized compartments. His last glimpse was of Thara reaching for him, her face a mask of desperate determination, before emergency shutters slammed down between them. The king's laughter echoed through the dying station. A fitting end to this foolish rebellion. Goodbye, daughter. In the darkness of the sealed compartment, Nathan touched his hand to the wall, feeling the pulse of the systems he'd maintained for so long. Not yet, he whispered. It's not over yet. The void of space beckoned through the breach in Helios's hull. Nathan's magnetic boots kept him anchored as he worked furiously to bypass the emergency shutters. His hands moved with practiced precision despite the environmental suit's bulky gloves. 15 years of keeping this station alive had taught him every shortcut, every override. The king's warships continued their bombardment, but Nathan barely noticed. His world had narrowed to circuits and power conduits, to the desperate need to reach Thara before it was too late. Warning. Hull integrity critical. Complete structural failure imminent. The station's AI was stating the obvious. Nathan could feel Helios dying around him, systems failing one by one. But he'd learned something from Thara, about courage, about standing up to impossible odds. The shutters finally yielded to his override, revealing the station's core. Thara stood at its heart, her body suffused with energy. The patterns beneath her skin pulsed in sync with the station's failing power grid. She was maintaining the shields through sheer force of will, her newly transformed biology interfacing directly with Helios's hybrid systems. Nathan. Relief flooded her features. I thought. Going to take more than a hull breach to stop me. He moved to her side, checking readings on his tablet. But we've got maybe 5 minutes before this whole place comes apart. Above them, the king's face still dominated the viewport. Foolish child. Your defiance ends here. You cannot hope to. He stopped, eyes widening as he truly looked at his daughter. Thara was changing. The energy coursing through her had awakened something, transforming her into something neither purely Carillion nor anything else the galaxy had seen. Light rippled across her skin in complex patterns that put the royal markings to shame. What have you done to yourself? The king demanded, horror mixing with fascination. I've evolved, father. Become something new. Thara's voice resonated with power. Just as our people must evolve. The universe is too vast, too wonderful for us to remain isolated in our fear. Nathan watched in awe as she stretched out her hands. The station's remaining power flowed through her, turning failure into strength. Helios's shield suddenly flared with renewed energy, but different now, a hybrid defense that the Carillion weapons couldn't penetrate. Impossible, the king whispered. No, Thera corrected. Inevitable. Change is the only constant in the universe. You taught me that strength comes from purity, from rejection of the foreign. But true strength? She reached for Nathan's hand. True strength comes from unity. From embracing difference. From love. The word hung in the vacuum between them. Nathan squeezed her hand, feeling the energy dance across his skin. In that moment, all the barriers between them, species, class, biology, seemed meaningless. The king's face contorted with rage. Then die with your human. Full power to weapons. Destroy them all. But something was happening to the warships. Their targeting systems, relying on Carillion tech, couldn't lock onto the hybrid shield frequencies. Their own energy weapons reflected back, creating a cascade of overloads. Fall back. The king's image flickered as his flagship systems began to fail. This isn't over, Thera. You cannot change what we are. We already have, Father. Thera's voice was gentle now, almost pitying. And we're only the beginning. The warships retreated, leaving Helios floating in suddenly quiet space. But the station was still critically damaged. Warnings blared from every surviving system. We need to go, Nathan said urgently. The reactor core is going to breach. Thera nodded, but her eyes were sad. Helios, it's been your home for so long. Hey. He turned her to face him. Home isn't a place. It's where you choose to be. And I choose to be wherever you are. They reached the emergency shuttle with moments to spare. As they pulled away, Helios erupted in a final burst of light, not an ending, Nathan realized, but a beginning. The station's death marked the birth of something new, something wonderful. In the shuttle's small cabin, Thera's glow had softened to a gentle radiance. Where will we go? She asked. Father won't stop hunting us. Nathan smiled, programming coordinates into the NAV system. I know some places. Frontier worlds where species mix freely, where people are judged by their actions, not their origins. He glanced at her. Places where a human mechanic and a Carillion princess might find their own path. Together. The hope in her voice made his heart soar. Together, he promised. After all, we've got a galaxy to change. As the shuttle carried them toward an uncertain future, Nathan looked at their joined hands, hers silvery and luminescent, his weathered and calloused. Different, yes, but perfectly matched. Like the hybrid technology they'd created, like the love that had grown between them, they were proof that the most beautiful things in the universe came from the courage to reach across boundaries. Behind them, Helios's remnants sparkled like stars, each piece carrying a fragment of their story, a story of two beings who dared to imagine something new, who proved that love could bridge the gulf between worlds.